In this video, we're going to talk about how to add and subtract matrices. So in order to add or subtract two matrices, their dimensions must be identical. So for instance, you could not add or subtract 2 for this matrix right here and this matrix right here because their dimensions are not identical. The first matrix has 2 rows and 2 columns, so it's a 2 by 2. The second matrix has 1, 2, 3 rows and 2 columns, is a 3 by 2. The dimensions are not equal, so therefore you wouldn't be able to add those two matrices or subtract those two matrices. Let me get rid of that. So once you determine that your matrices have the same dimensions, then you can go ahead and add or subtract them by just adding the elements in the same positions. So for instance, if we want to add these two matrices here, A1, matrix A with A11, A12, A21, and A22, to matrix B with B11, B12, B21, and B22, you will just add the elements that are in the same positions. So we would add the element that's in column 1, or row 1, column 1, to the element here, which is also in row 1, column 1, and you would put the result in row 1, column 1 in your answer. Then you would add the element in row 1, column 2 to the element in row 1, column 2, and your answer would go in to row 1, column 2. Then you would add the elements in row 2, column 1 together, and your answer would go into row 2, column 1. And lastly, row 2, column 2, you would add these elements together, and you would place your answer in row 2, column 2. All right. So let's actually do an example of how to add matrices. So I'm just going to make up an example on the fly, and let's just say we have -2, 0, 41, and 5/3. And we want to add to that a matrix, a 2 by 2 matrix, that has elements 3, -7, -102, and 4/5. How would we do that? Well, I would identify the items that I'm going to add. I start off with row 1, column 1, and I add these two numbers, -2 plus 3. And then in row 2, or row 1, column 2, I would write 0 plus a -7. And in row 2, column 1, I would write 41 plus a -102. And then row 2, column 2, I would write 5/3 plus 4/5. And then I would just go ahead and simplify. So I would get a 1 in the first position. When I do this, I get a -7. When I do this, I know it's going to be a negative number, so it's going to end up being a -61. And when I do this, I would have to find a common denominator, so I'm going to get 25 plus 12 is 37/15. Okay, the elements in your matrix do not have to be whole numbers. They can be fractions, they can be decimals. You're going to treat them just like any other numbers that you add or subtract. So what would happen if we changed this from addition to multiplication? Addition to subtraction. How would that change your problem? So I'm going to show you two different ways to subtract. I'm going to just go ahead and subtract the normal way first. The way that I like to do it is just write a subtraction statement. Other people do not like that method. They change everything into addition. Alright, so I'm going to subtract these, and I'm going to subtract the elements that are in the same positions in both matrices. So I would write negative 2, and I'm going to subtract from negative 2 the element in its position, which is 3. And then I would move on to the next column and write 0, and I'm going to subtract from 0 a negative 7. And then I have a 41, and I'm going to subtract from 41 a negative 102. And then I have a 5/3, and I'm going to subtract from 5/3 4/5. And then again, I'm going to go ahead and simplify that. So I get a negative 5. This is just going to be addition, so I'll get a 143. It's going to turn this into addition. That's going to be a 7. And now it's going to be 25 minus 12, which is 13/15. All right. So the other way that you could do this is to change your subtraction into addition like you were taught back in grade school. So it's really up to you whether you want to do that or not. But in order to change this into an addition statement, that's right here, we need to distribute this negative 1 across every element within this matrix. So I would go ahead and change the 3 to a negative 3, the negative 7 to a positive 7, the negative 102 to a positive 102, and change the positive 4/5 to a negative 4/5. And then afterwards I would change my subtraction into addition, and I would go ahead and add these two matrices then. Negative 2 plus a negative 3, 0 plus 7, 41 plus 102, and 5/3 plus a negative 4/5. And then I can go and simplify that to a negative 5. I get a 143, a 7, and again this is going to be a 13/15. And that's how you add and subtract matrices. Now your matrix doesn't have to be a 2 by 2. The only rule here is that your two matrices have to have identical sizes. They don't even have to be square matrices. You could add a 2 by 3 matrix to a 2 by 3 matrix. You could add a 3 by 1 matrix to another 3 by 1 matrix. The only requirement is that they must have identical dimensions.